Hour 2 of the RP shows for Culligan Water. Drink clean, live green, filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Check out Culligan Water of Regina at their website, culliganregina.com. We're going to talk some NHL, as we always do, with Jessi Pierce from NHL.com Minnesota and from the Bar Down Beauties podcast. But Jessi, hey, did you do something different? Did you do something different with your set?
I added a new ring light. How are we looking? We're a little dark, a little mysterious, but really bringing out the vibrance of just me as well.
I like it. It's kind of got a bit of a honky-tonk look, too, which I'm always a big fan of. Okay, before we talk about the Wild, the NHL race, and a few things, I was perusing the list of NFL free agents and who could cash in the most, and Sam Darnold's name is on the list. And I'm just really interested to know, that the Vikings fan that you are, podcaster that you are, what you think they are going to do with their quarterbacks in 2025, the purple.
I mean, drafting J.J. McCarthy kind of solidified that. Had he not been injured, J.J. was the future. He would have gotten some games in behind Sam Darnold, but obviously missed the season. Sam Darnold did good things here in Minnesota. We can't pretend he didn't. He certainly got these Vikings off to a very hot start, led him to some tremendous wins, but then he kind of turned back into a pumpkin. He kind of turned back into Sam Darnold, as we witnessed, unfortunately, for Vikings fans. So it'll be interesting to see. Sam Darnold wants to get paid. He probably deserves to get paid a little bit more than what he had considered maybe entering last season. But at the end of the day, I think Sam Darnold's a better backup quarterback for most situations. Now, again, the Vikings were in a precarious situation heading into last year with only backups, but yeah, Sam Darnold hitting the market. It'll be interesting. But J.J. McCarthy is the Vikings' future. Cannot wait to see a good quarterback grow into fruition here in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he learned a ton watching last year. Everything happens for a reason. I'm sure he'll just be fine. Okay, and then the other thing, before we get to the Wild, is being the USA hockey gal that you are. Can you take me through your emotions of the past 2 weeks in the Four Nations face-off?
I mean, first of all, huge round of applause to the NHL and all competing teams and players that participated in Four Nations. You could not be more elated as a hockey fan to have watched the growth of the game. You're seeing the Kachucks doing this media tour. Now, unfortunately, they are injured, which is the downside of a highly competitive tournament like the Four Nations. But they're really growing the game. They're growing the exposure. And that first US-Canada game, I'm going to focus on that one, if you don't mind, Rod, the one that
I get it.
It was victorious. No, but I mean, what a start! And actually, the championship game also a lot of fun. Just unfortunate for my U.S. fandom to come out on that other side, but I loved it. The competitiveness, the energy, the rivalries that sparked makes you more excited for the Olympics. Again, unfortunate that U.S. didn't come out with the victory, but it shows that they're right there. I mean, you go back 10 years and that wasn't the case. Canada's always had a huge leaps and bounds in success terms, but I just have to laugh because of course Connor McDavid scores it. Of course Sidney Crosby scores it in the Olympics, back in 2010. It's always those guys, right? But I'm very excited for the Olympic Games because this is a great preview.
Well said. Those boys needed a break, especially McDavid. And at least you only got a year to wait before they do it all over again and add a couple other countries, right? So, yeah, it was a bravo NHL. The way you let it off was the best way to say it. Okay, well, bravo Wild, but it seems like just a typical year for them. They're not running away with anything. Oh, we lost her. Or did you lose me, everybody? Oh, there we got you. Okay, I heard her. Is she going to hit refresh?
Hear me.
And she's back. Okay, I got you. They're going to bring you on.
Okay.
Okay, well, they'll figure it out. Jessi, we can hear you. It seems like a typical season for the Minnesota. Yeah, we got you. There you go. Typical season for the Wild in that they're not running away with anything, but they're not really sucking either, save for the firing of your boy Everson last year. But obviously they're going to be in on some of these trade pieces, I would think. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you thinking?
A very precarious situation once again in Minnesota. The good news is they got off to a hot start. That playoffs seem very inevitable. They'd have to kind of really take a tumble. Not to say that crazier things haven't happened, but I think they have earned themselves a playoff spot because of tremendous way that they started, unlike last year, which led to that Dean Evson firing, as you noted. But injuries, man, they are absolutely slaughtering the Minnesota Wild right now. Kirill Kaprizov had surgery on a lower body injury, which is suspected to be a groin situation, which is never good. Joel Eriksson Ek also re-aggravated an injury during practice. He is on IR, will be out for at least a couple weeks here. Those are two invaluable players for Minnesota, two guys that Minnesota needs in order to make a deep playoff push and to solidify a really good positioning and jockey for that good positioning throughout the rest of the regular season. But John Hines has that next up mentality. He has all of the players ready to go. Marco Rossi is having a really good season. Matt Boldy, once he finds that consistency, can be really good. Vinny Hinostroza, who Bill Guerin went out and picked up, has contributed a little bit as well. So all of that to be said, Bill Guerin's going to want to do something to plump up that bottom six forward. You need to find more contributors. You need to be able to jimmy what you can. So Bill Guerin's just not a guy that's going to sit back and let the trade deadline pass him. Now, there are 4 games between now and the deadline for the Minnesota Wild to really assert what they're looking for. Because the other big question is, do you hold out Kirill Kaprizov for the rest of the regular season and use his salary cap in order to go and grab a bigger name player, or do you let him come back during the regular season? Right now, we just don't know. Kirill has still not been on the ice. Kirill's not a guy that wants to sit out any games. They're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes by keeping him out, but is that the better scenario, and can you use his salary cap space? Joel Eriksson Ek, I don't think, isn't as detrimental, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bill makes small little splashes because I know he's certainly chomping at the bit for the offseason once they do have the Suter Parise contracts off the books and they can go in and get some big name players. But I think little tweaks, little additions wouldn't be a terrible asset for Bill Guerin and company as they look to push toward the playoffs here.
Every time we chat, I generally bring up Marc-Andre Fleury. And he was, pretty soon we're going to start hearing about the Swan Song, right? When he was in Montreal, they said his last appearance ever at the Bell Center. What's this next couple months going to be like, A, for him? Because do we know this is it? And 2, do we expect to see him in the playoffs? What's ahead for the Flower?
I think that's a great question. I mean, Philip Gustafsson has had a really good season, a good bounce back season, really, which is what Bill Guerin and company had asked for, and something that Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, is thrilled to see because he's such that genuine, authentic teammate. However, I think they're going to have to work in tandem. Gus has kind of looked a little off. Namely, you go back to last night, the Minnesota Wild fell to the Detroit Red Wings. A good game, but a goal or two that I think Gus would like back. Definitely not up to par. I think right now it's Gus's net, but I think Marc-Andre Fleury is very capable, very suitable to come in during the playoffs as needed. We saw him do that time and time again, even when the Minnesota Wild acquired him a few years back and Cam Talbot had the hot hand. Marc-Andre Fleury still stepped in and got those games. I think the next few months in general for Fleury, they're going to be emotional. It'd be a lie to say not. Yes, he's dealt with the big ones in Montreal and in Pittsburgh, but I think every city gets excited to see him. Everybody wants to see Marc-Andre Fleury. They want to be a part of this final year because he's just a tremendous human being, first and foremost, before even the incredible goaltender that he is. So I'm excited. Again, I keep crossing my fingers that maybe we get one more year just because selfishly, I love covering that man more than anything. But I'm excited just for him to get a little bit more success here with a playoff run with the Wild.
Yeah, just such a lovable figure. I can't wait until he goes into the Hall of Fame. My last one for you, Jessi, is Ryan Hartman. Wild in the news in that his suspension was trimmed from 10 games down to 8. I don't know anything about this guy. So tell me, please, what we need to know about Ryan Hartman. Because we have a guy here in Sunrise by the name of Matthew Tkachuk that everybody hates. At least I think they do. Yet they love him here. And he's been known to pull no 10-game suspension worthy stuff that you've seen him play. What's this Ryan Hartman all about?
The difference is Matthew Tkachuk is a very skilled player, and Matthew Tkachuk plays with his emotions but can control his emotions, and I think that's where Ryan Hartman goes astray. He is fueled by emotions, and you want that. You need that little bit of edge, that passion, and Hartsey has that, but the reason it was a 10-game suspension initially is because this is his fifth suspension in just a handful of years. He's, he lets those emotions, he sees red and he just doesn't think. He's not putting the team in a good position. I had mentioned Kirill Kaprizov being out. You're now down another forward with Ryan Hartman sitting out on the suspension, and he still needs to take up a spot on that 23-man roster, which is even more frustrating because of the limited amount of money that Bill Guerin and company have to make their recall. So Hartsey has been getting bagged a lot during practice. He's not traveling with the team. I think he's seeking out his consequences here with the squad. Hartman does have some skill. He's a very good bottom six forward, though. He has that grittiness in addition to kind of that physicality. A couple years ago, we saw him really produce offensively. I don't think that's necessarily his game, but he does have that capability to put the goal in the net. I mean, he was a first-round pick a number of years ago by the Chicago Blackhawks for a reason, so that's still in there. But I think Hartman really needs to play smart. I saw strides made this year for him playing smarter and staying out of the penalty box and not taking those stupid emotional penalties. But then we saw that rear its ugly head in Ottawa with Tim Stützle, which also the Senators went on to score 3 power play goals with that penalty that Hartman took in addition to the suspension that followed. So, it's tough because, again, you want him to find that balance, but he's been given a number of opportunities to find that. So it will be interesting to see the conversations Bill Guerin has with Ryan Hartman in the offseason to make sure this doesn't happen again.
All right, Jessi, great stuff. Please tell our viewers where they can consume your content, if you don't mind. The gal knows her stuff. We always say that. Where can they see more of you?
I appreciate you. NHL.com. We've got features, game write-ups, a lot of injury news, as I'd mentioned, to report. And then Bar Down Beauties, the podcast released each and every Tuesday. So new episode out yesterday where we discussed the Kirill injury, where we discussed the trade deadline for the Minnesota Wild, and answer some fun questions from our fans, too.
Great stuff. Jessi, thanks for this. Enjoy the home stretch.
Thanks. We'll see you later.
Minnesota's Jessi Pierce from NHL.com. And as she said, the Bar Down Beauties podcast. I'm going to read a sports update here for Heavy Jim and then take a commercial. There's a note for our producers and directors. And then it's going to be viewer takeover the rest of the way. I feel like we've had a tremendous program today with a lot of topics on the table. And then it'll be your chance to address them all. But here's the bell. Heavy Jim Sports Update. More than a half century of waiting will come to an end Friday night at Prospero Place as Kelowna welcomes back the Brier for the first time since 1968. The 2025 Montana's Brier will kick off Friday night with 3-time defending champion team Brad Gushue hitting the ice against their counterparts from St. John's, Newfoundland, Team Newfoundland and Labrador, skipped by Ty DeLello. It'll be one of 4 games in the opening draw Friday night, which is set for 6:30 p.m. Pacific. The other Draw 1 matchups have the host team from BC, Team Cameron DeYoung, taking on Manitoba's Team Reed Carruthers. Alberta's Team Kevin Cooey is up against Manitoba's Team Matt Dunstone, and Northern Ontario's Team John Epping faces off with New Brunswick's Team James Grattan. For complete draw schedules and team info, go to our friends at curling.ca. Sports Update is for Heavy Jim. They're not just about lifting weights. They're about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. And let's load up that text line for Progressive Insurance right now, 902-518-3033. Switch to Progressive, and you could save a bunch. We'll be back in a moment here on Game Plus Television, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.